probably know Antony Starr from his menacing role as Homelander in The Boys. Cold, calculated, and honestly one of the most terrifying characters on television right now. But a few years before that, he played, in my opinion, one of the best characters in TV history, Lucas Hood in Banshee. And this was actually the first role I ever saw him in, so this is where I first heard of Antony Starr. And looking back on it now, it's kind of crazy how underrated this show still is. Because Banshee isn't just good, it's one of those rare shows that does almost everything right, and somehow still doesn't get talked about enough. Alright, so let's get into the actual premise of the show. The story follows a master thief, and we never even get his real name. He gets released from prison after serving 15 years, and right away, you can tell this isn't someone trying to start fresh. He goes straight back into his old life. The first thing he does is track down his former partner and his former lover, Anna. But when he finds her, she's not Anna anymore. She's Carrie Hopewell. She's built a completely new life for herself. She's married, she has kids, and she's trying to leave her past behind. And this is where things get interesting, because instead of respecting that, he does something completely insane. He takes on the identity of a murdered sheriff named Lucas Hood, and becomes the new sheriff of a town called Banshee, Pennsylvania. So you now got this criminal running a police department, trying to reconnect with his past, while also dealing with enemies from his old life. And the craziest part is, that's just the turning point, because once he gets to Banshee, you realize this town is not normal at all. And that's what makes everything I'm about to talk about hit even harder, because the concept alone is already unique, but the execution, that's where Banshee separates itself. One of the biggest strengths of this show is the pacing, and I don't think people realize how important that is until they watch something that does it perfectly. A lot of shows today drag things out. They make you wait half a season, sometimes a full season, just to get to one major moment. Banshee doesn't do that. It respects your time. From the very first episode, you're already getting major plot developments. You're not waiting around wondering when something is going to happen, because something is always happening. But here's the key, it never feels rushed, and that's what makes it so impressive. Because even though the story moves quickly, you still get real character development, meaningful conversations, and emotional moments that actually land. The show finds that perfect balance between fast-paced storytelling and giving you enough time to actually care. Now, let's talk about the action, because this is one of the first things people notice about Banshee. When I say this show doesn't hold back, I mean it. The fight scenes in this show are on another level. They're not polished, they're not overly cinematic, they're raw, they're messy, and they feel real. You see every punch, you feel every hit, and the fights don't end cleanly, they're exhausting. They're chaotic, and sometimes they're honestly hard to watch, but that's what makes them so good, because it makes the world feel dangerous. It makes you feel like any character could actually get hurt at any moment, and that tension carries throughout the entire show. Another thing that makes Banshee stand out is the setting. At first glance, it just looks like a quiet small town. You've got local bars, a sheriff's department, an Amish community, but the more time you spend there, the more you realize how much is going on beneath the surface. There's crime, there's corruption, there are power struggles happening constantly, and different groups all trying to control different parts of the town. It creates this constant feeling of tension, like something is always about to go wrong, and most of the time, it does. And a huge reason why all this works is the cast, because this show absolutely nailed its casting. You've got Lucas Hood, played by Antony Starr, who completely carries the show. Then you've got Carrie Hopewell, played by Ivana Milicevic. Kai Proctor, played by Ulrich Thompson, who is one of the most interesting characters in the entire series. And then you've got Job, played by Hon Lee, who honestly steals every scene he's in. And even the supporting characters feel important. Brock, Siobhan, Emmett, they all feel real. They all have their own personalities, and none of them feel like background characters. Another thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the music. The intro alone sets the tone perfectly. It's dark, it's mysterious, and it immediately puts you in the mindset of the show. And throughout the series, the score does a great job of enhancing everything. This is something I really want to emphasize, because so many shows get this wrong. They start off strong, and then they just keep going, and eventually they fall off. You see it in shows like The Walking Dead or Dexter. They lose what made them special, but Banshee didn't do that. It ended after 4 seasons, and because of that, it feels complete. There's no unnecessary storylines, no dragging things out. It tells a story, and it ends it. And that's a big reason why it holds up so well. Now, I've got to talk about the villains, because this is one of the strongest aspects of the show. Every villain in Banshee feels memorable. Chayton, every time he's on screen, there's tension. You don't know what he's going to do, and that unpredictability makes him terrifying. Burton, he barely speaks, but he might as well be the most dangerous character in the show. His presence alone is intimidating. And I also have to talk about the albino from the prison, because even though he's not in the show as long as some of the other villains, he's one of the most memorable characters in the entire series. If you've seen the show, you already know exactly who I'm talking about. Every time he's on screen, there's this immediate tension. He doesn't say much, but he doesn't need to. It's all in his presence, the way he moves, the way he looks at people. You can tell right away, this is not someone you want to mess with. And what makes him even more interesting is that he's not just some random violent character. He's calculated, he's controlled. And when he does act, it's fast, brutal, and completely efficient. And his fight scenes, some of the best in the entire show. They're quick, they're violent, and they feel dangerous. He's not flashy, he's just effective. And honestly, that makes him even scarier, because he feels like someone who knows exactly what he's doing at all times. And even with limited screen time, he leaves a lasting impression. Kai Proctor, he's not just a villain, he's layered, he's controlled, calculated, but also ruthless when he needs to be. And then you've got characters like Calvin Bunker who are just completely unhinged. And that's what makes the villain so good. They all feel different, and they all bring something unique to the show. And this is something people don't expect going into the show. But Banshee actually has a lot of emotional depth. It's not just action. It's about identity, regret, and trying to move forward from your past. The relationship between Hood and Carrie is a huge part of that. And it adds layer to the show that makes everything feel more meaningful. And at the end of the day, that's what really sets Banshee apart. It feels different. It doesn't follow the same formula as every other show. It takes risks and it commits to them. And I think that's part of the reason why it's data underrated, but also what makes it so good. And something else I think is important to mention is that this isn't just me saying the show is good. If you look at the ratings, Banshee actually has strong scores across the board. On Rotten Tomatoes, the show sits at a really high score, both from critics and the audiences. And I think that says a lot, because usually when something is this underrated, it's either not very well known or it's kind of divisive. But Banshee isn't really either of those. The people who have seen it genuinely agree that it's a great show, and that's what makes it interesting. Because it's not like people watched it and didn't like it, it's more like a lot of people just never gave it a chance in the first place. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about it being on Cinemax and not really fitting into one specific category. It kind of just flew under the radar, but the ratings show that the quality was always there. So yeah, Banshee's one of those shows that hooks you immediately, keeps you engaged the entire time, and actually delivers a satisfying ending. It's intense, it's emotional, and it's just a really well-made show. If you haven't seen it yet, it's definitely worth checking out. If you've seen Banshee, let me know what you think, because I feel like this is one of those shows people either love or just haven't seen yet. And if you haven't seen it, give it a shot. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe if you want more stuff like this, and I'll see you in the next one.